Welcome. In this video we're going to be talking about Photoshop and masks. So using masks, what they're used for, some of the different scenarios they can be used for. So let's dive right in. So what are masks for? So masks are essentially for, well, what are masks for? What do you understand a mask as? It's used for covering something up. In Photoshop, it can be used for covering up a number of different things. It can be used for covering up objects in the image. It can be used for covering up adjustments, or it can also be used for covering up filter effects like blurring or sharpening. So masks, you get a mask when you create, for instance, layer adjustments. You get a mask when you create through using smart filters, and you can also manually add masks as well. Masks quite commonly work in combination also with selections, but you can also use the brush tool, although using the brush tool in combination with masks can be a little bit more difficult, especially if you're using a mouse, because it takes some practice to learn the technique or get a good technique using the brush. But let's have a look at some uses of masks in Photoshop. So first of all, what are masks and how do they function? So for instance, I'm going to unlock this image here. I'm going to unlock the background layer. So I'm going to double click. It's called layer 0. I'm going to leave it with that default name, and I'm going to manually add a mask to it. So I can do that from my layer panel. That's one place I can do it from. I can add a layer mask here, or I can go down up to my layer menu and go to layer mask, and I can either click reveal all or hide all. So reveal all will create a white mask. Just Control Z or Command Z for Mac to undo that, or layer mask hide all will hide it. So you see the difference between the colors here. So if we look now at our layer panel down here in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, you'll notice that I have a new rectangular box with a little chain link between the image and it, and the color is black. So with the color black, the mask is hidden 100%. So if we take a look at our mask, so if I press Alt and click once on the mask with my left mouse button, I see the mask. Okay, so as you can see, black is the current color and it hides all. So if I turn the mask off again, or turn the visibility of the mask off, we see nothing. If I do Control I, and I'm doing Alt and clicking on the mask to show you what the mask looks like, now we have white, and white shows 100%. So white 100%, black shows 0%. So if I take my brush tool here, so I'm taking my brush tool, I have the color black selected here, so black is selected, and I'll just click and draw with my brush. I'm going to turn the mask off, or the visibility of the mask back off when we look at our image, and now you can see where it's 100% hidden where I drew the black line across. So if I change that color to a gray color, so if we pick a gray color that is, so that's under the lightness, let's go 50, so we know it's 50%, and I draw a line now across, and the layer is 50% hidden. So that gray, if I click on my Alt and click, you can see this gray color, and that would indicate that it's 50% hidden. If I change it to 25%, click OK, and now I draw the line here, and then I can change this again to 75% and draw a line again. And now I'm pressing Alt to turn off the visibility of the mask, and we can see our differences. So here we have 50%, 75%, and 25%. So again, black hides 100%, white shows everything. So I'm going to just revert, go back. So F12 reverts back to the image when it was opened, the state the image in when it was opened. So how can we use masks in combination with other adjustments? So for instance, if I wanted just to select this flower and use this flower, in Photoshop it's normally recommended that you don't delete pixels, but that you use masks when you're trying to, in order to isolate elements in an image. So if we want to do that with this image here, let's choose our object selection tool and let's scroll over our flower, and it's got pretty good. I'm going to click on that. That's okay. That selection's all right. It's not great, but it'll do. It's missing the highlight a little bit here, but for purposes of showing, this is fine. So now with an active selection, if I create a mask from the layer panel below, it will use that selection to create a mask. So now you can see here, if I do Alt click to show you the mask, we can see here it will show everything where the white is and hide everything where the black is. And that translates to this image here where we have the flower isolated in the foreground and our background is now hidden. So again, we can see the mask is showing where it's black, shows 0%, and where it's white, it shows 100%. So again, I'm going to hit F12, reverting back to the image as it was. And again, we can make our selection, clicking. And if we want to select a mask, we can improve our selection slightly. So for instance, if I want to check the edges, I can smooth the edges, I can shift the edge inwards a bit if I think it's selected too much of the image, and then click OK. Alright, so for instance, if I want to make the rest of the image black and white except the flower, so I want the mask now to affect the background 100%, and I want my foreground flower affected 0%, I need to invert this selection before I create my adjustment, layer adjustment. If I go ahead and create my layer adjustment now with just the flower selected, so I go to a new layer, new adjustment layer, black and white, click OK. Now my flower is black and white, and I don't want that. So I'm going to do Control Z to undo. I still have my selection, so I need to go to Select, Inverse. So now my selection is inversed. You can see the marching ants around the image. Now when I go back to my layer adjustment and select black and white, the area that was selected is affected. So that becomes the area that shows the adjustment 100%, and the area that wasn't selected is affected 0%. So that's one of the useful things. When you create a mask from an active selection, the active selection is automatically applied to your mask. So in this case, you can see here we have a layer adjustment with our mask already in place. And you will always, with any time you create a layer adjustment, the mask is already attached automatically. Okay, so let's move on to looking at another example. So with this image here, I've already made a selection of these people in the foreground. So we want to look now at what happens so if I'm creating a smart filter. So if I convert for smart filters and I go ahead and go to my filter and I go to blur, and let's use Gaussian blur. And of course, this foreground gets selected. So if I cancel this, then we need to go to filter, select, inverse, and now we go back to filter and we go to our blur, and then we go to Gaussian blur, and at the moment that's of course far too high, so we want to perhaps lower it down. So we want to blur, get our background blurred out, but we're not going to, because this background contains some information where it's kind of falling off a little bit. We can also add a gradient to it once our filter is So we changed this, let's set that at 50%. And of course, it will depend on the size of your image and the pixel dimensions of how much radius you can add to blur it out. But for this one, I'm adding 50%, clicking on OK, and you can see now we have our nice mask created there. So I want to add to that mask, I select my mask, I want to add a gradient to it. So I go over here and I select my gradient tool. I need to set my background foreground color to black and white, so I do D for defaulting it. So with the gradient now selected, I need to, before I start doing this, because if I start adding my gradient right away, it will also affect, it will write over the previous mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, with my mask selected, I'm going to control click. So now that I control click on my mask, it opens up an active selection of everywhere where the mask is affecting the image 100%. So I'm going to use my gradient on that part of the image. So now with my gradient, it's white to black. So I'm going to select around about the area where I want the gradient to still affect 100%. So about here, and then move it to about here. So then we get this kind of nice fall off in our blur. So I do Control D to deselect. Now you can see we have a in focus foreground and the blur gradually falls off, and you can see that from our mask. If I do Alt click to show the mask, you can see here where the focus is 100% and it starts falling off, and where it's white, the Gaussian blur adjustment will be 100%. So those are some uses of masks in Photoshop where they can be applied to. So as I said, they can be useful for hiding, showing adjustments. They can also be used for hiding and isolating elements in photographs. And they can also be used with smart filters to hide parts of the filter effect. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them below. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, click like. Thank you for watching and goodbye.